looking at doing a replacement of the Andalusia Fire Station. Obviously, that doesn't affect this station, but you guys are all part of the fire district, so we want to have a meeting up here as well so that we could have good representation of both areas. If you didn't know, in 1961, the fire district was formed where Andalusia and Edgington both came together, and we operate seamlessly together. All the guys are part of the Andalusia Fire Protection District, and right now we've got about 26 members, a little bit under what we'd want, but for a volunteer fire department, we're doing very well in that part. The one thing to remember about the Andalusia Fire Protection District, nobody in the fire district gets paid. Everybody is volunteer, there's no money transfer on that. The only people, grab a seat. The only people that do get any money by state law, the trustees have to get a little bit of money. And usually what they do is they take us to our fire banquet, so no money is being spent from the taxpayers with to have that event. So we don't spend a lot of money in that way. So the reason we're doing this is the Andalusia Fire Station was built in 1974. It was built in a time when trucks were different sizes. It was built in the floodplain, and there's a lot of issues. So we're going to just kind of chat through them. If you've got questions, might be just easiest to let us get through everything, and then we can answer them at the end. I don't really have a problem with that. Just try and get through the information quick, and we'll go through there. Today, let's see who we've got here. I've got most of the officers for the fire department. I've got representatives from Estes Construction, who we hired to do construction management services with us and help with budgeting. And then we've got, and then you guys from the public here. So we're going to start it off. So we'll kind of focus on this one for right now, and then we can dive into the others. Operational benefits. I mentioned earlier, the trucks aren't the same size. If you walk through the Andalusia station, we've got about 2 feet between the front door and where the trucks start. So the space is just outgrown. We've got, hello, that's okay, no problem. So we're out of space. We currently we're supposed to have 5, 6, 7 trucks down there. And right now we've got 4 trucks, our boat, and then the yellow pickup's supposed to be down there, but we don't have room for it, so it sits up here if it needs to. And I have another fire engine that sits up here that is supposed to be down in Andalusia. The reason that truck's supposed to be down there is for insurance ratings. We have a truck that doesn't leave town. We have a truck that doesn't leave the district. And so that means that at the end of the day, we're going to end up paying less money for homeowners insurance. They reassess that about once every 10 years. And I think we're due at about 2026 for a redo on our ISO rating. So we've run out of space and we've had to move some things. As far as storage, Andalusia doesn't really have a lot of storage either. It wasn't part of an issue back in 1974. So we've had to rent storage units in the past across the way. Recently, we purchased a 40-foot can. You see it sitting out here. We got it about 2 years ago that we can store some of our training materials. We have an extra boat in there and anything that we can't find a place for. We have revamped Andalusia in, 2000 and when did we do an update to the floor plan? 2005? 8? So what we did is we made a little bit more room in the meeting area and got us a training office that we could have some things in, but most of our spaces are dual purpose with either storage of equipment, file storage for the trustees, things like that. So we're just running out of room is the easiest thing. Additional spaces and capabilities for training. So right now the floor plan for Andalusia and this is very similar in how many people we can put in here. Unfortunately, we host a lot of classes that are put on by the Illinois Fire Service Institute, and it's called Cornerstone Training, and they have a long list of free training that anybody can get. And what we've run into is usually we can't fit in the space here, and we have to move trucks, bring in extra computers and all kinds of things because we don't have any setup to do PowerPoints and stuff like that. We usually have to move the trucks out and we set up in the bay. The last class we had about 35 people at, but it's not uncommon for us to get the 40 to 55 people depending on what class we're hosting. And those classes can range from anywhere from people from Rock Island, Moline, Sherrard, anywhere in the state are allowed to come and take those classes free. The only thing that it costs the fire department to us is we usually provide a meal and the men usually take care of that so that everybody has something to eat and drink that we can take care of. So that's that. If anybody's been down in Andalusia, it's pretty tight down on the city streets. We talked about truck size. The trucks are a lot bigger than what they were. The easiest thing is you can go look at our engine from 1986 and our engine from 2003, and you can see huge differences in width and length and all that. Andalusia right there, to get out of the station, we have to go on Andalusia, go up between Casey's and Luby's, and then the sight lines right there are really bad. If we were going to get in an accident trying to get to a call, it's probably going to be about at that intersection, because Luby's has got a sign out front that, like a signboard, and then Casey's with their big signs, there's just not a lot of room. So we have to be very careful there so we don't get in trouble. The other problem is if people are turning in front of us, the trucks are almost so big that you can't pass each other on the road. So we really worry about getting in wrecks right there. Just because we have our lights on doesn't mean we don't stop. We stop everywhere, but if you stop and then have to wait 3 minutes or 2 minutes for people to get out of your way, that's going to slow us down a lot too. So, school time, right? So, let's do community benefits. Right now, the Andalusia Fire Station itself does not sit in the floodplain, because when they built it in 1974, they built it up like 4 or 5 feet to get it out of the floodplain. But the problem with that is it still would be surrounded by the floodplain. So like in 1993, when we had the big flood, we had to move all the trucks out, and we had to abandon the fire station, because if for some reason the dike would have ruptured, which has been always a concern since 93, we wouldn't be able to get to the fire station and get the trucks out. When we did that in 93, we went up to the Andalusia grade school. Luckily, there wasn't a lot going on, so they let us keep everything up there. But as soon as the trucks are out of the station, somebody has to be with them 24 hours a day. We don't let equipment sit anywhere. It's always secured. And the problem with that is, like I said earlier, we're all volunteer. We don't make any money to do this. So anytime you'd be seeing someone sit somewhere with a truck, that means they're away from their family, away from their home, just to make sure the taxpayer equipment isn't being vandalized, taken, whatever. It's hard to think that anybody would ever steal a fire truck, but it's happened in town. It's kind of it happens. I hope it doesn't happen out here, but you never know. The planning phase for the community benefits is we're looking at building a structure that's supposed to go 50 plus, I'd say 75 years. So with that being said, there's a lot more room in it for new equipment, more community space as far as trainings. If people want to use the fire station, we use this fire station a lot for graduation parties and things like that. So we always open it up to the community as it's a community building. But what you'll see is there's a lot of room in there that is maybe a little bit extra for right now. I don't need it maybe tomorrow, but we don't know what's going to happen in 5, 10, 15 years. We do have a volunteer ambulance right now that has its own building, but we don't know the future of the ambulance. And unfortunately, the fire department is responsible for paying to have an ambulance. So we have to kind of figure out what the best move is. Do we have extra space that we can incorporate in a 24-hour ambulance in the fire station? Do we maintain another building? I think their building was built in 1975, if I remember right. So the thing about that is ambulance sizes are different as well. They've really increased size. So there's some issues there. So do you keep 2 buildings? Do you go to 1 building or what? So you'll see in this, there's a lot of extra room for some 50 to 75-year planning. New location. So a couple years ago, we bought 2.08 acres right on Andalusia Road. So if you know where the Andalusia Bank is, we'll just go to this one, that's easy. The Andalusia Bank sits here right on 101st Street, and this would be Andalusia Road. And this would be looking north to Iowa. So we bought 2.08 acres right here. So we own an access point off 101st Street, and then we own 250 feet of frontage to Andalusia Road. The reason we did that is because it gets us off the smaller streets where we don't have to worry as much about people being right there. And to get on Andalusia Road, it'd be a little bit safer as we don't have as much traffic necessary right here. And the apron hopefully would be long enough that hopefully we'd see some lights and you wouldn't get maybe as congested. So that's the reasoning we did that. We bought that about, I think 2 years ago now, August of 21, with the purpose of looking at building a new fire station. So we've owned that for a little while, and that was the site plan we used to start designing and laying things out. Public and community events, I touched on that a little bit. So I'm sure everybody's been to a graduation party, a family birthday party. We do all kinds of things. People call, we put them on a schedule. They're able to use these anytime they want. The only time we don't let people use them is if we have a scheduled event, like a training or something, but usually we can do training at this station or that station and we can stay out of the way, so. Costs and expenses. So fire district, history of fiscal responsibility. I can talk on this a little bit, but the trustees have done a really good job in the Village of Andalusia. So the Village of Andalusia, or the Andalusia Fire Protection District, hasn't had a loan on anything for, give me some years. Ever. We've never taken a loan on anything. The thing to remember is a lot of these trucks out here, the rescue in Andalusia was $630,000 and we paid cash for it. So we've budgeted, we've saved, we've done a very good job of not trying to pass on burdens to everybody. We've not had to take loans before, so, sorry guys. So that's why we're talking about maybe doing a bond for this. The problem is the fire station is gonna cost a couple $1 million, and I can't raise millions of dollars in 4 or 5 years to cover the cost of it. So the problem with everything in the fire department is all getting more expensive. They've talked about increases in prices for everything. If you put medical, fire, anything on it, it adds money. The new trucks, to replace the truck out here, they think it's gonna cost $1 million if we do that. So we have a lot of difficult decisions coming up about replacement of vehicles and all that. So that's why we're looking at that. Substantial down payment. We save cash for all of our trucks and all that. We're in an interesting phase where most of the money we've saved over the last handful of years is for a down payment on a fire station. It's possible that as long as we don't have any major expenses that come up that we're not prepared for, we can almost put $800,000 at this building right now. The only way that changes, if we have to replace a vehicle or something like that, we might have to decrease the amount. So instead of 800, maybe it's 700, but the money is sitting there ready to go. But that's taken multiple years to save. And like I said, when you're looking at millions of dollars, it's without just raising taxes crazy, crazy high, we can't save that much money. The fire district owns the 2 acres. I talked about that. Bond cost. So I'm not gonna speak like I know this super well, but bonding is cheaper. Instead of taking out a traditional loan at X amount of percentage, we would take bonds out for the referendum amount is $5.2 million. The difference that we can do with that is we can put that in investment savings accounts, get money off of it. Any of the interest we can save can go back towards paying things back. So the referendum amount was for $5.2 million. Maintain the ability of future growth. Right now, we can't really grow in the station. If for some reason we went to paid staff or people were around during the day, we don't have the ability to keep them there. We can't move trucks, we can't keep the trucks we need, we don't have enough space. We did at one time looking at add on to that station, but since it's in the floodplain, now we have to update with all the new flood things, flood venting, all that stuff, and the cost of that just gets pretty high as well. So most economical design process. There's design builds, there's design bid build. We chose to go with construction management. It makes sure that we can get what we're looking for. So Nathan from Estes and John are helping with the construction management side of it, and they are gonna help run that project for us for right now. We have teamed up with Shive Hattery, who's basically done most of these drawings and things. And these are, drawings 15 probably, and they change. What you see isn't a guarantee of what's gonna happen, but we've made some big changes, updates, and all that. Safety, access. Okay, so safety, the highway is an issue. Address OSHA regulations. So we had an IDOL inspection in 2020. We had never had one before in the history of the fire department because it was kind of one of those things they didn't do. And IDOL came in and said, okay, this is what you have to prove to us. The problem with that is they have the same expectations of the city of Rock Island, city of Moline, any of the full-time paid departments. We have to abide by the same things. So, they come in and check, is your gear good to go? Our fire gear cannot be older than 10 years old, no matter what. If we do 2 fires a year and there's 10 fires on that gear, at 10-year mark, you have to pull it. Unfortunately, the cost of fire equipment is about $5,800 a guy right now to get a new fireman outfitted. So there's a big cost there. And these are things that you don't have to do it, but if you don't do it, they can come in and start doing fines because it's an OSHA violation. They checked a lot of things, and the best part about the OSHA inspection was it showed us that with two minor issues of they didn't like a bloodborne pathogen policy, respiratory assessment policy, and we needed to buy a couple SCBA mask bags, we passed our inspection with no fines or anything, which is, I think that shows how well we are trying to stay prepared and not get behind and take care of things. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, just, you need to make sure they understand Idaho, Illinois Department of Labor is
I'm
OSHA,
sorry.
is OSHA in
Yes,
Illinois.
sorry, I didn't mention that.
It is OSHA.
Very good, sorry, thank you, Stan.
No, it's just-
Acronyms and I sometimes. So the other part is provide improved parking. Right now, the fire station in Andalusia doesn't have any parking. We can park, if the village doesn't have operations going on and they're closed, we can park over on their side. They've got some parking spots, but otherwise it's park in the grass, park in the back. It's just down in Andalusia, there's not a lot of parking. So that's the board there. We've got a, and like I said, all this is subject to change. We've got an overhead view of what it could possibly look at for parking and for the aprons to get trucks in and out, the overall layout, which, the funny thing is we had shrunk it down to just under 13,000 square feet. When we started looking at the building options, it was cheaper to go with a little bit bigger of a building because it was a standard sized building. It didn't have to be custom made, custom cut, whatever, that's what they had mentioned. So we got a little bit more square footage to help get some things in there, and then it's just an overall picture of what it could look like on the outside. The concept that the fire department has is they're gonna try and keep it as close to what the community looks like as possible. We don't want a glass palace of windows to fit into Andalusia. We're gonna go through the Fancy Creek, go through town, go look at what it is to try and get it to fit into what the town is. And then it'll give us a nice spot for the future to grow. So, did I miss anything?
One additional statement on the OSHA, the day is gonna come when OSHA is gonna start enforcing regulation on carcinogenics.
Sure.
And we got some major problems in the fact that our personal equipment being in the Bay Area with the trucks and the exhaust and being exposed to the carcinogenics that are on the coats and boots and turnouts when we come back. The last 5 years, it's really gotten to be a hot topic because they finally figured out that the cancer rate for firemen is about 20 times over the normal.
So, like you'll see out here, we have gear racks that sit right next to the trucks. In Andalusia, all the gear sits along the back wall. So the problem with that is they say diesel exhaust, that's bad for them. It can break them down. So there's systems that can do that, that we have diesel exhaust systems and stuff. Most likely, this station will have that, and we're looking at retrofitting this station as well as we can. But the gear is supposed to be in an isolated room. So when you look at this, there's a gear storage area. This will have negative pressure, so it keeps all that stuff in that room. You don't have to do this, but if you don't, NIDAL or OSHA come back, they can be like, well, this is a new station. Yeah, your 1974 station, we grandfathered this into this, but this is a newer station. You need to do it like this. And the fines are a real thing. It's happened to a couple fire departments within the region. That's been a concern. So I guess, do you guys have any questions or what? Yes, go ahead.
You had talked about the ambulance.
Yes, absolutely.
Is this building that you're looking at have
Yes.
the ability to move that in, and is that your plan, or is that looking down the road if it's
Yes.
needed?
We're always gonna have to have an ambulance. It has to happen.
Okay.
So where we put it is the big question. Right now, like you said, they have their own building. It can probably only hold 2 ambulances. It has 4 doors, but I don't know if it's long enough to hold 4 ambulances anymore. Karen would know that.
It's not.
No, okay. So the idea behind it is basically anything from here back in purple, this would be residential type space. 24-hour sleep rooms, bathrooms, stuff like that. So bathroom, shower, all that, right? And then the extra bay here, and this is just in here right now. There's an entire bay that would be for ambulances. It shows about 2, but you could probably get 3 ambulances in it from front to back if we ever needed that. Most likely, we're not gonna ever have more than 2 ambulances. And then there's a nice big storage room here that would be for any of the medical equipment they need. The hardest part with the ambulances, I don't know. I can't tell you. The ambulances in the entire state are in a really big pickle right now of what to do. So right now, yes, it's working. We have paramedics 24/7 and they're there, but volunteerism is hard. Our ambulance used to be volunteer where nobody got paid, where they got paid a couple bucks. And now the costs have gone up. The ambulance contract is very expensive. That's the most amount of money we spend anywhere. So I would love to say, the plan is that we would move an ambulance in here and they'd operate out of it 24/7. But I can't tell you if that'll be in 6 months, 5 years, 20 years, I don't know. And it's a really hard question, to be
But
honest.
the intent is that
Yep.
the option is there.
The option is
You're
there.
building it in.
Yes.
If and when it's needed.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because it's,
If push comes to shove, money-wise, that whole area that he described would be unfinished. We'd pre-plumb it with the construction and leave it as bare
Yeah.
until we needed it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
an insurance.
the intent is to be there.
That's,
Yeah,
no, that's
exactly.
great.
Yeah.
It's an insurance policy more than anything.
Sure,
Yeah.
that's
What,
great.
what's wrong with the ambulance building now?
There's nothing necessarily wrong with the ambulance building now, whether it's the ambulances are bigger there too. The biggest problem is going forward, if our ambulance agreement changes, we have to sell all the assets, which means ambulances, buildings, everything. So if we sell that, we don't have a place for an ambulance. And it's a very,
But if
that's
we-
a separate, that is a completely separate.
Well, I know, but
problem,
he
yeah.
brought up
Yeah,
the
no, no.
ambulance, so, but like, if you sell it, then who's the ambulance gonna be in there if
We'll have
it's
to
not?
we'll have to contract somebody. Because the fire district state law states that the fire protection district has to provide an ambulance service.
The ambulance could, the current ambulance
Yes,
could operate out of here.
it could,
And
absolutely.
we could maintain ownership of the ambulance. But and this could take an hour of discussion,
Mhm.
but the ambulance service is completely up in the air right now.
And it's not just here, they're having problems in the north, they're having problems everywhere, and, I mean, Karen could probably speak to it, she works for an ambulance, and there are problems everywhere. Mercer County's just gone through a huge ambulance issue, there's just a lot going on with the ambulance right
The
now.
labor bill for the ambulance next year will be $500,000, just the labor.
Mhm.
There'll be if everything was to freeze rate-wise right now,
Mm-hmm,
if the rates were to freeze right now, a full year of service at this current rate would be $500,000. You'd have-
where is most of the money going
You would have
to?
3.5 million, or 345,000 going to paramedic coverage, which would contract with Elite. And the other 150 would be for the EMTs/first responders from the existing service.
And that don't even build you new ambulances.
No,
No,
and the
no.
problem is.
And right now, we have the ability to cover the labor, and actually, the money from the calls covers the operation of the building. But we're not putting anything, we're not doing any capital planning for the future. If one of those ambulances was to completely fall apart, we'd have to buy one, we'd have to deal with it on a separate basis.
And the interesting part about taxes, so on your tax bills, you see Andalusia Fire Protection District. So the problem with that is if you're spending, our current tax rate is what,
295.
0.295,
For fire.
and the
For fire.
ambulance is say 0.3?
No, the ambulance was just over 2.
Okay.
Next year it'll be 3.
Okay, so all I'm trying to say is your tax bill, you have two built-in tax rates. There's fire money and ambulance money. By law, ambulance money has to go to the ambulance. No issue there, understand. But fire money cannot go to the ambulance. And if it does, you can give them a loan, but they have to pay the loan back. So if you don't have enough money to operate, you can't loan it and not get it back. Because then what happens is you can be in trouble with taxpayer funds. So unfortunately, you don't see on your tax bill, you don't see where the ambulance money goes and the fire money goes. It's just one budget item. But we have actually very clear accounts with what's fire, what's EMS, is very well tracked. So our trustees meetings are open too. If you ever want to see the financial side of it, it's all right there. So
Why
You
don't
have
you
any
finish
questions?
up
Yeah.
with-
I got all kinds of questions.
all right, what do you got? Let's
Okay,
do
let's
it.
start with the ambulance first.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, we've got two issues on the taxes.
Yes,
One
we
for
do.
ambulance.
We do. Yes.
Now,
I was
the
gonna
reason,
speak to that
wait a minute,
after.
I'm
Yeah.
asking a question,
No, that's
please.
fine.
The first thing you did,
Mhm.
Reynolds pulled out of Andalusia Ambulance, correct?
That is correct.
And
Yeah.
why did they pull out?
Ask them.
You'll
No,
have- no.
it's either two
Hold on,
reasons,
hold on.
money or service.
So I can't speak to that. You will have to ask them because they
Okay.
wouldn't tell us specifically. They said they needed to go. That was it.
That was it, they just
They did.
left us high and dry.
They just said they had to go. It was what they needed to do for their district.
So what's Reynolds do for their ambulance that they have to provide.
Yep, so they're paying a contract to the Coal Valley Fire Protection District.
So
Similar
it's
to like,
obviously cheaper in Coal Valley than
I
Andalusia?
don't know that it is, I think you're gonna have to ask them. Because I can't
So,
tell
but you got it on your you got it on the referendum, correct?
We do have, yes, I'm
I
sorry.
can talk to that.
Okay, okay.
He's the fire chief.
Mm-hmm.
The trustees basically deal with the ambulance as far as the contract and the money. People gotta know what's going on.
Yeah,
Well,
obviously.
and I tried to explain, did you see my letter in the paper back in October?
I saw part of it, I'm sure it did.
Well, it sort of laid the groundwork as far as what's happening with the ambulance. There's some point blank facts. Reynolds wants to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now you have to understand how the current ambulance is set up. We got 3 fire districts that pay for ambulance service. We got Reynolds, we got Andalusia, we got Buffalo Prairie, Illinois City. How they pay for that service is, it's proportioned to the size of the EAV, the assessed evaluation. For years and years and years, for the last a good 5 years, it basically breaks down where Andalusia has the highest assessed evaluation, so they pay about 45% of the cost. Reynolds pays about 30% of the cost, and Illinois City pays 25% of the cost. You got 3 fire districts dividing up that cost. If Reynolds hadn't have left, we wouldn't have had any problem. When Reynolds left, it basically left the exact same cost to do business, but it ended up with less people paying for it. So instead of 3 districts paying for it, you have 2 districts paying for it. And when you go to 2 districts paying for it, Andalusia goes to 65% of that cost, and Illinois City goes to 45% or 35%, 65 and 35 instead of 45, 30, and 25. What that's going to cost Andalusia Fire next year on a $500,000 budget is another $100,000, $97,000. Now Reynolds, and this, the president of the trustees of Reynolds sat there and told me their first 2-year contract with Coal Valley was $162,000 each year for the first 2 years. If we would have stayed in the group of 3, Reynolds' cost for a $500,000 budget would have been $151,000. So it's costing them more money. They're getting an ambulance out of Coin Center, and that one ambulance in Coin Center is covering Coin Center, Matherville, Viola, and Reynolds. Now, when you call for an ambulance, I hope it's there, because that's a lot of area to cover.
So they're
with one
paying
unit.
more money for poor
Reynolds
service?
is actually paying for 2 services until November 1st of next
Yeah,
year.
but they went to that service because it's not as good as Andalusia?
You gotta ask Reynolds that.
Well, I'm just curious, because you're
they-
asking.
We asked them, and they wouldn't answer us,
Okay,
We don't know.
because it's obviously not cheaper. And as far as I'm concerned, the coverage is thinner. So Reynolds needs to ask, you need to ask Reynolds why they went.
okay.
But it's
So we'll
costing
get
us
back to
a
your,
lot of
your
money.
All right,
first
wait,
one.
well,
Yeah.
keep going.
You said there are 2 referendums, right? The one is for EMS,
Yes,
right?
it is.
So we broke that down, and I just kind of told you about that. There's fire money.
We
ambulance
have to
money.
vote on each one of them
You have to be,
separately.
yep, they're completely
Correct.
separate. So the EMS is, with us, that extra cost, at the current tax rate, we won't be able to support the ambulance the way it is either.
Mm-hmm.
The real scary part is, even if we get to 0.4 and we can increase that because you vote yes on it, that doesn't mean we're
Still may not
safe.
be enough.
It
Yeah.
still means we could have some
Not
issues.
I mean, even though you got less service area and less.
Yeah, so,
It's
yeah,
still
that's a
cost the
great,
same.
yeah, that's a great question,
So
so.
if Edgington dropped out, then it would still be the same?
Edgington is part of Andalusia.
Well, I know, but okay.
It'd be up to
Buffalo
Illinois
Prairie.
City and Buffalo
Or
Prairie.
that's Andalusia.
Illinois City, Buffalo Prairie. If they dropped out,
Our cost would go
Our-
to $500,000.
our cost is still the same.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So the real problem is,
Service
we
So we
only.
got a problem here with that.
The service is
Exactly.
fixed.
Exactly.
Because if communities can drop out
Mhm.
and leave us holding the bill,
Yeah.
then something's wrong and we need to contract out also then.
So we've had meetings with, Neil Anderson recently. Like I said, this isn't just a local
I
problem.
understand.
Yeah,
It's,
so
I
it's-
appreciate what you guys are doing, you know,
Yeah.
your fire and ambulance is very important.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
But the way, like, why are we holding this referendum on a primary ballot? When there's only 10% of the people that are gonna vote, instead of the general election where we might get 50%? Where we get a better idea that more people are gonna vote, more people are gonna have an opinion. It seems like it's kind of rushed, and I haven't seen any real numbers yet
I
You
don't
just,
think it's really
5.2
been rushed.
million is the first number I've heard.
When that was the referendum amount.
What?
The referendum amount, it was in the
Is
paper as well.
5.2 million you're
Yeah.
asking for?
Absolutely.
It's printed on the
It's,
referendum.
yeah, we followed all the rules. We
Well,
got
I
it right.
understand,
Okay.
but why was your decision to put it on the primary instead of the general
Is the
election?
school going on in the November one?
I don't know that.
The
Yes,
school.
there's talks
Well,
about the
that's-
school as well, but we don't know that.
Yeah, there's a good chance that it would be.
The school will be in November.
Okay,
Let me explain.
but that don't mean,
We started this process back.
we need more people input from that.
Well, the whole reason we're having this
Show up.
meeting is to.
I know, but
have
we see
this.
we got,
Well, we
10
can't
people here.
go out and kidnap people.
I know.
It wasn't a real good time. I mean, the only reason I'm here is because President's Day.
Which is why we planned it today.
But that's just for teachers. Like, most people don't get.
And that's why we have a 6 PM meeting as well.
I know, but like my sister, she works right now until like 7 o'clock. My sister cannot come.
So remember, I'm a volunteer.
Well, I understand that.
Okay.
I do understand
So-
that you're a volunteer, and I appreciate it, but you could have maybe had it on the weekend.
I
You're
work,
Maybe.
always gonna have a problem.
I work-
no
yeah, I work
matter
24
when
hours.
But I'm just
something
saying the
like
amount of people that get to say something on this is gonna be very small, which is not right. It affects the whole community.
We have done everything we could to make it known. We're not hiding anything.
No, I know, but you're hiding,
We
you're
can't
putting it on a
write-
primary, which is
No, we
nobody
put it on the
votes.
first available ballot. We wanted it on last year's and we weren't ready. We didn't have their numbers.
What's
done
it make a
last
difference
year.
if it goes into November?
Just
Nothing.
gets more expensive.
You ain't gonna get any taxes till next year anyway.
Well, that's another whole story too. It's
Well, yeah.
On the ambulance.
But
We-
I
we could
mean,
raise the
whether you
tax
have
on
it
the
now or November is not gonna make any difference on your tax rate.
What difference does it make which election it's in? It's an election. If people wanna vote, they're gonna come out.
Okay, but there's gonna be more people that have a say in it.
No.
Everybody that has a
Everyone
say
who
can
wants
have a
to
say.
have a vote.
Well, yeah,
Is gonna take
they will
interest
come
in
out and
voting.
vote.
It's irrelevant what ballot it is on. You're providing the opportunity, you're providing these 2 times for people to come. You know, we're in Andalusia, we
Yeah.
came up here because it's the afternoon, and I appreciate that you have an
Mhm.
afternoon
Sure.
program here. You got an evening program there. People who wanna ask questions can ask
Yeah,
questions. They can
absolutely.
they can call you, they can call any of
Yeah.
the trustees with any questions they have. You're providing all the opportunity, and thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's what
Okay.
that's what I started to say. We started this process back in 17, 18. And we got started down the road and COVID came along. Now, you don't go to the people and ask for money or a tax when you got people out of work and people losing their job. So we put it off until things improve. That's good and that's bad. It's good the fact that we didn't push it through then when everybody was hurting so bad. The bad part about it is construction costs in the last 3 years has gone up 45%.
Yep.
So instead of we were hoping to hold it under $3 million, we're looking at over $5 million now, just to build this thing.
So,
Yeah.
what will my tax rate now for the fire department is a half percentage point, 0.5121. What will these
Okay.
2 increases make my new rate? Mr. Bonsack,
The ambulance one, I don't know.
treasurer, what are you?
He's
What?
president of trustees. I'm the treasurer.
You're the treasurer?
No, he's
What-
the treasurer.
What will this,
I'm the
what rate,
secretary, but I do a lot of the.
what will this rate bring my rate up to?
Well, you're gonna be at 3 next year on the ambulance.
3 on the ambulance, and then what, if this rate goes through, what will the fire department be?
Well, the fire department right now is at 3, they're both at 3.
No,
Which is
5 point.
Which is the max. We have if you remember back in 2010, we did a referendum to take fire to 4, and it passed. And fire is, the cap on the fire is 4.
Mm-hmm.
We've never been there. When we asked for 4, we went over 3, which was the cap at that time. But then we came right back down, and we've been around 3 or below for like 10 years with fire. Ambulance, cost has gone crazy for years. Ambulance was at 2, around 2. Next year will be 3, which is the cap now. And we're asking for an increase in the cap to 4. And even at 4, probably within a year, I would say we're good for a year. After that, we may not have enough money to pay for an ambulance.
But isn't that because you guys, we didn't used to have a paramedic and now we have a paramedic?
Yeah, we have paramedics.
So
We
that,
went from,
Upgraded the service.
that increased that's how the
Yes.
the increased cost problem was because we put a paramedic.
Paramedic at the time was an increase in service. It was, everybody knew we had to increase we had problems with running a basic service. If you've been around and you know how the old ambulance ran when there wasn't paramedics, if it turned into an advanced life support, they had to have an ambulance meet them at TPC for the advanced life support. And every one of those calls was $225 if you could get somebody to answer your call. It got to the point where for years they went to AMT to meet them there.
Yeah.
Then AMT stopped answering. They didn't have a rig available, or they were busy or something else, so they'd have to go to Rock Island. It got so bad that at one time an ambulance from the Arsenal met them at TPC. If you tried to do that same thing today, and we've had paramedics now for 3 years, if you tried to do that same thing today, I seriously doubt if you get anybody to answer. Because
Everybody's very busy.
everybody is hurting as far as their number of calls and their units.
But isn't that what kind of going on with the Reynolds since they took Coin Center, since it has such a big thing? Is it like they're gonna have problems too, getting all the calls?
Oh, yeah.
It's possible they could. I
They're
mean, we don't
spread
know
so
that.
thin, that's paramedic service too. Basic life support service is not
So the
the norm.
the ambulance before paramedic was, what did we pay a year? What was the budget? We paid like $80,000 a year, I think.
It was less
Us.
than 100.
It was pretty reasonable. But then with paramedic, the increase is from level of service, what they can and can't do. And so it did cost more, but
But that was the jump in the ambulance.
that's what the jump in the price in the ambulance was. Exactly.
Okay.
So that's one of those, it's kind of a double-edged sword. We wanted to provide better service and things worked out. And then we've had an issue and now it's gonna be a lot harder.
But if we contract out, it could be even higher.
It could be higher.
So like, it's not that,
You know what the contract in Aledo is?
no, I have no idea.
I think it's over 600,000.
Yeah. For the same
But
thing
see,
we're
the difference,
trying to do.
it's not apples to apples.
I understand
Because
that.
at Aledo, they had to provide their own ambulances.
I understand
Whoever
that.
they went out to had to bring their own units in.
Yeah.
We have our own units, so
Right.
when we went to paramedic, all we had to do was pay for the labor.
Yeah.
All we had to do is contract the labor. to
So
get
that's really the
paramedic.
better way to go.
And it was just fine until Reynolds left. We would still be fine if Reynolds hadn't left.
Okay.
But like I said, next year's gonna cost Andalusia Fire Protection District an extra.
Can they come back?
$97,000.
Can Reynolds come
Anytime
back?
they want. They haven't left yet.
Okay, so they could actually like, once they're done with their deal with Coin Center, they could actually come back and then we would be in a better
Well,
spot?
The way you worded it makes me wonder what you mean.
Well, I just mean
Right now,
like,
they're still part of the organization. They haven't not legally left.
but they've signed a contract with
But they
somebody
signed a
else.
contract with
So they're
somebody else.
in legally binding with somebody else,
With both of us.
with both of you. So if they,
People don't know
when,
this, but Reynolds is paying for 2 services until next November 1st. 2 services.
that's crazy.
That's good, more money in our pocket, right?
Well, it makes it so we can operate. For so yeah.
I got another question.
Absolutely.
Do you have referendums are very, very hard to get approved.
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people in this room are gonna vote against both of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Number one, like in Andalusia, the growth in Andalusia has been totally stopped now, I believe, because our city fathers sold our water and sewer.
Mm-hmm.
As your family knows, and anybody from Andalusia here, your increased rates went up 200% or more. They're asking for another 42% the next 2 years.
Sure.
How far can you take the people with, I mean, you think they're gonna actually vote yes to increase their taxes when their water and sewer bill went up double, triple in many cases?
I can't tell you that.
What service do you get today that you're not paying more for?
No, but not 200%,
Well,
300%.
we're talking about a capital investment here, we're not talking about service.
Well, I'm talking, you gotta pay to live, you gotta pay to live in Andalusia. If you can't, they're tearing more houses down in Andalusia than they're building. They just discontinued the second half of Liberty Square. They took out that was 30 or 40 homes that they removed. I just don't see where you're gonna get the revenue. even if you do pass this. A lot of the people that are retired, you know, probably have their taxes maybe zeroed out, you know, where you can't increase them. So that's, the younger people are gonna get stuck with a lot more.
Yep. It's why we're doing the referendum and the vote, is to present the information and you make your own decision.
Mm-hmm.
But to say that
I mean,
everybody's
you
gonna
can't-
vote it down in the room, I think is a little bit,
No, I'm not saying that. I'm
You
saying
just did.
how,
You
you
just
can't
did.
afford it.
well, I understand.
That's what I'm saying, you can't.
You know,
keep
all I
going
can
to the-
say is-
Going to the well.
We have not raised your taxes every year. We've let the EAV
Mhm.
cover what we've needed. We don't frivolously go out and just buy whatever we want. We plan, we have rotations on the trucks we purchase. Unfortunately, it all costs more money. So if you want a truck to start, if you want a building that we can get use out of, it has to come from somewhere. And I don't know, if you vote no, you vote no, but we had this so we
This
could have
is your only,
discussions.
this is your only plan, there's no plan on expanding or
Well, I can go up to a point,
substation
to do another station, no. It's two
well,
stations.
you know.
What do you mean substation? Explain it. Maybe I don't understand what you
Well,
mean.
you say you need more room, right?
Mhm,
And
yeah.
the streets are too small, you gotta go through the street to put out a fire anyway,
You
right?
do, yeah.
So I mean, you're downtown, I mean,
Yeah, sure.
there's
Yeah,
nothing downtown Andalusia anymore.
Sure, I understand what you're saying.
Everything's been tore down.
So
and
have you met
abandoned.
one of our fire trucks on the road when it was going somewhere?
Mhm.
Okay, what did you do?
I got off.
Well, good. Do you know not everybody does that?
Well,
But that's not
that ain't gonna,
yeah,
It's
that
a
ain't gonna
safety
change
hazard.
much though.
yeah, it's not gonna
I
change.
mean, you ain't gonna set at an intersection 3 minutes with a fire truck with the sirens blaring and waiting to get out.
Okay.
I
I
don't
do,
see
I
that.
do have a question. I
Sure.
wasn't gonna do it, and I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You're here
But
for
I
the
saw,
questions.
I saw you driving your truck and you dropped your kids off at
Yeah.
school.
Absolutely.
Why are you using, and maybe that's your truck, I don't know,
No,
I'm sorry,
it's not.
I don't know, maybe it's your truck.
No, that is a fire department truck.
Okay,
I'm the
why-
fire chief. And I'm
Okay.
in the district, and usually I'm on my way to the fire station when I do that. So I have an office in Andalusia, and that's where I do most of my stuff. So,
Okay.
as I'm in the district, running errands for the fire department, the trustees have said, hey, you can do this because volunteer. And Gary, our previous chief, put thousands of miles on his truck with no reimbursement. So instead of me paying X amount of thousands of dollars a year of fuel and maintenance cost of my vehicles, they allow me to use that vehicle to do my chief duties, which I don't get paid to do anything, right? So that's what their agreement is, that I can use it to get back and forth and do things.
Do you also pay for the gas, or do they pay for the
I
gas?
don't, that's what I get.
Oh,
out of
you
it.
get-
They pay my fuel to run my errands for the fire department and get back and forth to where I'm going. Yep.
You still haven't explained to me how much this is gonna raise my taxes.
We've got these here, so 1,000 on,
So it's a 0.5% now, what's it gonna go to?
I can't answer
The
that.
both
for you.
of them.
So you'll
I
have
mean-
to ask somebody, the trustees ask. I can't, I
Well,
don't.
this is
I
an
don't know.
informational meeting, I mean,
It is,
I
100%.
should be able to know what I'm getting into
I'm
on
not
this
telling you
vote.
what I wanna tell you, I'm telling you I don't
I
know
know,
what it is.
but-
So,
You should have information, say, okay,
Okay.
Larry, we're gonna, 30% your property taxes are gonna go up on the fire section only. How much are they, you got an idea?
You know, Larry can call the bonds guy, that, there's a, you know how you do bonds, I'm sure you understand bonds.
Yes.
So there's a phone number there, the guy that would do the bonds for us, he gave all of them. He said, call him, phone number's right there.
we'll have to get you that number, it's not
Yeah.
out, so I can get it for you.
You gotta know what you're asking for in appropriation ordinance, right?
You know John Passetti?
No, but I mean, you gotta know what you're asking for to pay your bills, right?
We know what we're gonna have to bond for, in order to make the 5.2 million.
Okay. So how much will my property tax go up then?
So $200,000 home, it's $20.73 a month.
$20 on a $200,000
This says right
home.
here, $20.73 a month.
On both of them.
That's for this referendum here. This is a referendum meeting about
on the fire department too,
this is the fire department.
and on the ambulance.
The ambulance is not included in this because it wasn't, this is a fire station planning
Well,
meeting.
you're in charge of the ambulance, so the money, right?
I am actually not. The trustees are in charge
Okay.
of the ambulance.
But it's goes in one pot.
No,
Correct?
not really. It doesn't. That's where all the confusion comes. The ambulance, we have separate money for the ambulance in different things. We can show you how much money we have, what we use, all that just for the ambulance. The fire department doesn't use any ambulance money for anything. So no ambulance money goes to any of the things that we do.
So you're saying the most it's gonna raise anybody's property is $20 a year.
Only if
It's
your
assessed
house
on
is at
houses
200,000.
valuation.
If your house is 150,000,
How's that gonna
it's
do
not
for the
gonna
real
raise
estate
at 20.
business?
That's $20.
You know what? I can sell a house a lot easier to an area that has up-to-date facilities
Mhm,
than I
that's
can
true.
outdated facilities. And if we're having to deal with outdated facilities, you know, who wants to move to the district?
Why does anybody move to any of the smaller towns then? If
I
we're
would
outdated.
say that if you wanna go to Rock Island and look at what you're gonna pay for fire department service, it's gonna be a lot more than what you're paying here. No matter, even if we get all these referendums passed, because you're paying for full-time, 24/7 people, and the most of that money goes to, the cost of people. Right now, in pensions, absolutely, we don't pay any of that out here, so
I
we've
agree, I
been.
got the exact amount I pay you guys every year.
Good, that's great,
Right here.
yeah,
That's what I pay you. And
yes, sir.
What is the intent with the old fire station? I mean, what are you anticipating doing with that once this is built?
It'll be sold.
It would be sold, but
It's a
we have to go
tax-
through some things because it's tax-owned
It's
property.
a tax owned property and the state has guidelines and regulations. You
Okay.
gotta get it appraised by 3 different appraisers and you gotta put it out for open bids.
Okay. The intent is that it's not gonna be used for anything, it's an
It would be sold.
asset that will be disposed of.
That's right.
As far as the fire department's concerned, it'll
Yep.
be disposed of.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
yep, yes, sir.
What is your plan if if
Hold on
this
one second.
fails?
I don't know that yet. Let's talk to Hiss here.
Is the property
Yep.
east of town, is that
It
paid
is.
for?
It is, yeah, we bought that back in 2020.
August
Okay.
2021.
21, so it's
We
paid for.
$50,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's all done. So, all right, if it fails,
If it fails, what's your plan?
what's the plan?
Try to move ahead. We have to look at our options.
I mean,
We're gonna
you got
get a
land
new
now.
station.
We do
It's
have
just a matter
land.
of
But
when.
we're gonna build one sometime, right?
It's just a matter of when. It could
The
delay.
longer we wait, the more expensive it gets as
And
well.
you gotta remember, this bond, the cost of this bond is half of what a mortgage cost would be.
What, half of what cost?
A mortgage cost. If you took a straight mortgage.
Oh,
out,
yeah, if you went out, yeah, bonds
Yeah,
are
it'd be
cheaper
like
than
7 or 8%.
interest, yeah.
This
Oh, yeah,
bond's gonna be
that's,
around 4.
because it's backed by taxpayer money.
Yeah.
That is why, it's
Well, it's-
guaranteed.
it's backed
They're gonna
by
get
sound.
paid.
It's sound.
There's no
The
way
customers
to
are gonna get
default
paid.
on this.
That's right.
That's why it's cheaper.
Well, it's a secured loan.
Mike, what do you have? Sorry.
You had mentioned that by 2026,
Yeah,
another ISO rating.
I believe that's the schedule, yes.
Right, so, the people here have to understand what we get rated with at ISO.
Yes,
If they drop our level,
yes,
then your homeowner's insurance is gonna go up.
yeah.
And
It-
homeowner's insurance goes up no matter what.
Right.
You drop an ISO rating, you're gonna see a tremendous jump on it.
Yes,
So this is an opportunity here to mitigate that and head off the loss of the ISO points by having a station that's up to date, meets all the requirements, and allows us to put the apparatus in there that we're gonna need in the future.
yes, yep, that's right. And the ISO rating thing, it's an assessment. They come and say, you have
That's
this list.
just with the new building, not
No,
with our old buildings.
with any building. ISO is an
So how does the
insurance.
other fire departments get by at this end?
You don't get by. It's an
Well,
assessment. They come and.
Buffalo Prairie?
Yep. They have a
Illinois
higher,
City?
they have a higher ISO rating than we do, which costs more money in their homeowners insurance. So like, in this city, you should have a lower rating, right? You have hydrants everywhere, you have full-time guys, you have all that, so it should be low. Our ratings, for a volunteer fire department are pretty good. So back in 2016, what they do is they come in and say, there's a list. We need you to show us how you do it. So they evaluate all of our equipment, they evaluate how much water we have, how we can pump water, what our plans are, they look at everything. And then from their determination, they say, you're gonna stay where you are, or you know what? You didn't make it, and they're gonna increase things. There's in-town and out-of-town rates. So like, there's an Andalusia rate, and then there's a county rate,
So Rock Island will have a better rate than Andalusia.
100%. And if they don't,
And we have a better rate than Reynolds, right?
I believe that we do. I don't know Reynolds rates off the top of my head, but I
Well,
believe
I
we
mean,
do.
they're,
Yeah.
Is Edgington and Andalusia together as
Yes.
a rate?
So there's an in-town rate and an out-of-town rate.
What are
Because
we?
You guys are a little bit higher because you don't have a fire hydrant system that's like Andalusia's hydrant system is a lot better in town. We have great hydrants, here and here, but the water, this isn't set up to be a hydranted area.
Well, one of the
So
big-
we have
one of the big-
Edgington has a
one of the
rating
big
and
things
Andalusia
with
has.
ISO
Yeah.
is it's based on the central station, what's available to fight fires.
Okay.
There's 2 rates, any rural district has 2 rates. You have
Okay.
a rate within 5 miles of the station and a rate outside of 5 miles of the station.
So if I live 5 miles within the station, I have a
It's
better,
of Andalusia, because Andalusia has a water hydrant system.
so I have an out of town
You
even
have
though
a
I'm
higher
in a
rate than
town?
Andalusia.
That's correct, yes, because
You always have had.
Yeah.
That hasn't changed in 50 years.
I've gotten smarter,
well, that's good.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow, the sheet that the bonds guy gave us said that current conditions, $100,000 home for this station would see an increase of $112 a year.
What was it, $20?
That's a month.
A month, oh, okay.
Oh,
Now-
yeah, I said a month.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought you said you was gonna raise it $20.
No, a month.
$112 a year.
A year.
For a $100,000 home.
For a $100,000
Yeah.
home.
is the bond for?
20 years.
And will that tax be taken off then after that?
Got to,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bond, it goes away.
I've never seen a tax go away.
I mean, it's a bond.
It's a bond. It's not-
It's a bond.
Never seen a tax go
Yeah,
away.
Yes,
they
sir.
don't-
Could you go
It's
over
just
that
like a
picture
mortgage.
A little
Yeah,
bit more
absolutely.
detail? 'Cause
Sure.
from back here,
Yeah.
I even get up and read it, I'm not sure I'm
No,
gonna
that's
understand what
fine.
the intent of the different rooms are that you're
Sure.
expanding.
No, that's 100%. So there's 5 bays, it totals about 9,000 square feet where we can park a couple trucks depending on their size, okay? So, brush truck, boat, engine, tanker, rescue, engine, we got a couple ambulances, pickup in the corner. And then this is like the space they separate it out like a hazmat thing, where this is green space where you don't want any chemicals, you don't want anything nasty in there. This is the yellow area where you can clean all the things, gear, tools, all that stuff. You don't want that to be tracked in here, and then you've got red space, which is the bay. So in between here are basically different things for EMS storage, water service. They put that in there to show, we need some room for that. Mechanical space, we have SCBA room that'll have a compressor. It'll have a cleaning table for any tooling, any equipment we need to work on, and then there's a decon laundry space. So, 20 years ago, we never used to wash our fire gear. It was like, yeah, my helmet's dirty, that's great. Well, we talked about cancer and all that. So now after every call that's fire related, we come back and we wash our gear in a special washer. And it keeps it in good shape so we don't have to replace it as often as well. So there's laundry for that, and then there's a decon shower, so if we need to get cleaned up, we can. Right now, we don't have showers in any of our buildings. So when we come, we are dirty, we go home, we track it home in our vehicles, whatever. If you want a shower, we don't have the option here. Then down here, this is where all of our fire gear, helmets, coats, bunkers, and stuff would be stored here. As we move over, there's the chief's office, which would be like where I would be, with a reports office or officer's office. So where we can write reports, the training officers, the captains, everybody can have a spot that they can do some work if they need to. File storage is for the trustees mostly. It's secured storage because we're required to keep our records for, I think it's at least 7 years. Forever. Okay. So we have concrete file cabinets that are fireproof with all the trustees' records. So that's what the file room would be for. We've got public restrooms, and then we've got like a living area, kitchen area, kind of similar to what we got going on here. Training room in the green, and then table and chair storage related to the training room here. This back half, like I had mentioned earlier, is restroom, laundry area if we ever have 24-hour people, and then a couple dorm rooms. And then above the yellow space would be a mezzanine, and that's basically for storage. The front half's going to have some of our mechanical things like electrical, stuff like that. It keeps it out of the way. And then there's going to be room for the future. We don't have a gym in here right now because we have a deal worked out with Turning Point where our members can get discounted rates at Turning Point. So we've been using that. But there's room for extra storage. We can do training stuff up there. There's just a lot of room up top that's, the room's already there. We didn't have to add it. Right, so that was a good use of that space. So that's the basic layout there. Like I said, we've looked at this a lot. We've refined it a lot. We've tried to shrink it. We've tried to make it make sense, but it's the future. So that's what we're trying to figure out. So,
Thank you.
yep. Anybody else?
Just so I'm correct, $112 per year for a $100,000 home.
Yes.
Per
that's what he
each
said.
100,000. So
Yes.
Fancy Creek is gonna be paying up to $1,000 probably on
Just
some.
depends what the value of the house is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, they're,
Yeah.
That's gonna be their increase.
That's right. Jim?
Sure they'll like that.
I'm a retired fireman, volunteer fireman
Yeah.
from Hillsdale.
Okay, yeah.
25 years.
Yep,
And I'll tell you what, you got to go with the flow, is expand that building because you're working in a shoebox. And the size of the trucks
yeah,
are a size 12, and you got a building of a size 10.
yeah. I mean, look at the,
So
so,
you've gotta stop and think, yeah, it's gonna hurt your pocketbook. I'm on a fixed income.
yeah,
Probably
absolutely, Jim.
A third of us are all on fixed income. But what do you do when you go buy that loaf of bread?
Right. So you remember the old fire station up here?
Yeah.
The trucks that we have now, we couldn't even put in that station.
Right.
So that's the,
See, Hillsdale is in that predicament too someday.
yeah,
They got the old John Deere building that's been there for, forever and ever.
Yeah.
And it's getting to be a shoebox.
yeah. You know, and Andalusia has done a great job for its 50 years, but, it's getting small, yeah. Yep, yeah. The rescue, it can only go in one bay, the engine can only go in one bay, like they have to be where they are.
Yeah.
Because they don't fit anywhere else, because of different mechanical things in the back of the station, so.
Brush truck out, you gotta move a truck.
Yep, so,
And I think like Stan said earlier, you know, just since you guys started planning this, building costs have gone up 45%. They're gonna continue to go up. When was the last time we had a decrease in building costs? So if you're gonna do something, why wait 10 years when they're gonna be double what it's gonna cost now?
Do you ever get to the point though where you oversaturate for asking for money out of a community that can't afford it? Because
how
there is
can
no
you-
development.
How can you sit here and say a
Because I see
community
it.
that they
There's
can't
no
afford it?
development. When you have a 200% water and sewer bill increase.
That's not our problem.
Oh, yes,
That-
it is. You
that's
gotta
the-
draw
that-
from the
but
people.
that's
No,
your village
that's-
problem.
I know, but
That's
the
not
people are in
that's
the
not
village are
this.
paying that bill.
Then
now
you
you're
should have
asking to
spoke
pay
up at
this
that
bill.
time to them.
Yeah.
You should have spoke up to the
Oh, we
village of
spoke,
Andalusia
we
about
spoke,
that.
yeah, we talked about it.
And
In regards to
So-
the water company down there and stuff, they came in saying that they were gonna be doing a bunch of improvements. They raised that rate for the thing, we should start seeing improvements down there. We cannot hook any one of our trucks up to one of those hydrants down the village of Andalusia, because the minute we start pumping water, we collapse those lines, because they're ancient and they're small, they're under code. So we have to put the pressure on the village board down there to hold American Water to their commitment to improve.
Larry's probably been at those meetings.
Yeah.
You raise your hand
That's gonna
again. What do you
happen.
got?
What is the timeline if the referendum passes as to when we may see the station actually there?
That might be a good question for Estes. He says once it's approved, shovel in the ground. When do we see progress on it?
I would say, you would start the design process then, and that's upwards of 12 weeks or so. from
Mhm.
that. I'd be looking for, turning shovels in the ground August.
So, August. And we've done some things already. We bought the property, we did soil boring testing, all the testing's back. We've prepared as much as we can to be ready for what comes. So, all right. Well, we'll go ahead and shut it down for now. And if anybody's got more questions, we'll be around for a little while or whatever, and we can go from there.